All right, so I'm assuming you guys can see the panel screen I have up on the Discord. So for those of you, well, actually, I shouldn't even have to do this introduction because I've done a bunch of panels for you guys now. But my name is Andrew Petrie, or Petrie Cosplays, and tonight I'll be doing a panel called "The Avatar and the Fire Lord: A Heroic Legacy." This panel is centered around the Nickelodeon show Avatar: The Last Airbender. Maybe some of you guys have seen the show on Nickelodeon when you guys were kids. And I know there's a whole brand new audience now getting into the series and its sequel series, The Legend of Korra, since Avatar was put on Netflix back in June. So this panel is just going to be me mainly talking about why I love Avatar and why I think it stands out so much compared to many other cartoons and shows out there nowadays. There will be a Q&A session and a discussion at the end. So if you guys want to chime in your thoughts or bring up anything that I didn't bring up during this panel, feel free to let me know. Or just turn on your mic and speak. So just before we start, here's my social media. It would be great if you could follow me on Facebook at Petrie Cosplays. My Instagram is also Petrie Cosplays. I tend to use my Instagram more than my Facebook page. And I've been trying to post what I can, mainly because of a pandemic taking away any con or cosplay opportunities. And then I have a YouTube channel. I just put the hyperlink in there, but I can also put it in the Discord chat later. And then my tips for PayPal. Right now, I mean, most of us are going through some financial struggles, and obviously, donate what you can, even if it's like $1. I'd really appreciate it. But I'm not doing this panel to ask for money or staffing WebCon for that matter. I'm doing this for fun. Okay, so just a quick disclaimer before we start as well. Number one, this panel is specifically focused on the Avatar: The Last Airbender animated show. So the Avatar universe, such as The Legend of Korra and the comics, will be discussed towards the end, but this panel will be specifically focusing on Avatar: The Last Airbender and not what happens to the cast, after the events of Avatar. Number two, there will be spoilers. Should be pretty obvious, but it's been out for a long time now, and this is just your warning, so don't hold me liable. Number three, I am not an official media critic, and this is a fan-run panel. Everything I discussed is based specifically on my opinion of a show, so obviously if there's something you don't agree with, just feel free to, bring it up in the talk at the end, but, don't hold anything against me because, I'm not an official media critic and I'm not getting paid to do this. And number four, as I said before, there will be a discussion session at the end of the panel. All right, so the first thing that makes Avatar really unique is its world and magic system. Um, as many of you guys know, and especially because it's compared to anime, Avatar is based primarily on Eastern Asian cultures, and most of the martial arts were actually derived from the different styles of mainly Chinese martial arts. The two creators, Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino, consulted with Sifu Kizu, who's the guy in bottom right picture, to gain inspiration for their bending forms. And most of the forms they took from Sifu Kizu. I don't know if they did motion capture, but they used his style of kung fu and the different types of kung fu into their show and bending elements. So in particular, the four elements waterbending is based on Tai Chi, and this is flowing and graceful movement. Most of the waterbenders in the show are healers. Unfortunately, there is some sexism in the show where a lot of the female waterbenders will typically be healers, while a lot of the male ones will be in the army, especially the Northern Water Tribe. And basically, they more or less go with the flow in their movements. If you've seen it, it's very slow paced, and then some waterbenders, which they bring up in season 3, known as bloodbenders, have the ability to waterbend people's blood. And the episode "The Puppet Master," the woman Hama does it, and she, essentially kind of treats anyone she bloodbends like, in a puppet movement. So it's a bit faster, but you still can see the flowing movement of Tai Chi in the water bending of it. Next is earthbending, which is based on Hung-Ga Kung Fu. This emphasizes deep stances and using your lower arms. So earthbenders are very strong and steady. They're like a rock themselves, where they will stand and wait. One of the main characters, Toph, uses what's called seismic sense. So because she's blind and she uses her feet to see, she is able to sense anything that is, coming at her right before it hits her, mainly because she waits and listens before striking. And that's what Hung-Ga Kung Fu is mainly based on, those principles. Next is firebending, which is based on Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. Um, this martial art mainly, or bending style mainly, emphasizes aggressiveness and quickness. So a lot of times firebenders may lose control, especially if the bad guys, where they'll just do rapid fire punches and kicks and attack anything with fire. We also see this earlier in the series where when Aang tries to first learn firebending, he loses control because he's excited to play with the fire and accidentally burns Katara. Next is airbending, which is based on Bois. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this well, but it's Bagua Zhang, I believe, which is emphasizing circular movements with a stress on walking. So airbenders will be very quick, and like a leaf, they will, move and try to take the. I believe they say in the show, it's like they try to take the path of least resistance, where they'll try to avoid fighting. And, this fits in with many airbenders in the show because the airbenders are monks and they are a very peaceful group of people who typically do not fight unless they have to. So next up, I'm going to bring up the different cultures that are represented in the show, which I also think is very interesting. Um, and while the time period of Avatar is unclear, I would say it's set in the 19th century because of many of the industrial factories that they have, but also because its sequel, The Legend of Korra, takes place in the 1920s. And I feel that the time period is very fitting for what is on in the world and how colonization and imperialism is affecting the world of Avatar. Um, the nations and their cultures have resemblances to real life cultures of East Asian countries. So first up, we have the Water Tribe, and the Water Tribe are based on the native peoples of Asia, so mainly Inuit, Yupik, and Cyrenaic Eskimo cultures. The Earth Kingdom, which I'll get to this in a little bit, is based on Qing Dynasty China, which was the final dynasty, so ruling family of China before they became a republic, and after they became a republic, they became a communist nation. Um, the Fire Nation was based on the Japanese Empire, and this is clearly shown through not only their values of honor and expansion in in the show, but also through the technology and just how they go about different things in the show. So the Japanese Empire was formed in the late 1860s. This was during the Meiji era, Meiji Restoration, and ended in 1947 after Japan lost in World War II. So, and then the air nomads are based on Tibet, Shaolin monks, and Sri Lankan Buddhism. And unlike any of the other nations, the air nomads are very spiritual people in their ideals. They're basically isolated from the world. They're either isolated or they're known as air nomads, so they travel the world in search of enlightenment. Whereas the other three nations, people tend to live in towns or cities and will, join the military if needed. So once again, bringing in the comparison to cultures, on the left we have Earth King Kui. He appears as a significant part of Book 2. And on the right we have Emperor Puyi, who reigned Qing Dynasty China from 1908 to 1912. I'm not too perfectly sure about this, but in Book 2 there is a big conspiracy where the main cast go to the Earth Kingdom capital of Ba Sing Se, and they learn that the Dai Li are hypnotizing people to try to get them to think. They're trying to make basically a utopian city where they want people to believe that the war does not affect Ba Sing Se, and they do so by brainwashing. So I don't know how true this is, but I was reading something about King Dynasty China potentially having a brainwashing scandal in, I think, the late 19th century. It might have to do with the Boxer Rebellion, but I could be completely wrong about this. And then we have the air nomads, and the air nomads, as I said before, they're mainly based on Tibet and Shell cultures. And on the left we have Avatar Aang and Monk Gyatso, and then on the right we have Tenzin Gyatso. And funny enough, Monk Gyatso is, the name of Gyatso in the show, but also the name Tenzin is the name of Aang's kid in the legend, of course. So clearly there was inspiration from this guy, and also his robe as well. So next point I want to bring up are the realities of war and genocide. And the premise of Avatar: The Last Airbender, as we all know, long ago, four nations lived in harmony, and everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. And um, the series ends once Aang defeats the Fire Lord. So the series cannot end unless the Avatar is there to defeat the Fire Lord, because he's the only one who can do it. And that's the goal, start to finish. After Aang defeats the Fire Lord, there's no secret twist villain or anything, unless you want to count M. Night Shyamalan. But yeah. So because the show is mainly centered around a war, the show goes really in depth, especially for a kids show, about the realities of war and genocide. And at the beginning of the show, we see examples of this in episodes such as Imprisoned, where um, Earthbenders are essentially taken out of their town and placed on a metal ship where they cannot Earthbend, because the Fire Nation troops that colonize their town do not want resistance. So the episode is all about finding your courage, and at the end, they do take back their town from the Fire Nation. And then we have Jet, and Jet is a really interesting episode in particular because Jet, the guy at the top, he is literally dead set on doing anything to destroy the Fire Nation. And we learn this as he attacks an old man who most likely was just an Earth Kingdom citizen. And he also um, destroys a village to wipe out the Fire Nation in the village. But he also essentially attacked any women, children, families that were in that village. Or he didn't seem to care. He just all he was concerned about was, defeating the Fire Nation, because the Fire Nation ruined his life as a kid. And then Zuko Alone, which is an interesting episode where Zuko, the main antagonist, goes on his own, and he meets a boy in the Earth Kingdom, and he essentially becomes friends and tries to learn humility from the family, and even teaches boy swordsmanship. But when at the end of episode, there are a group of like Earthbenders that end up bullying the family, and he goes to rescue the son from the Earthbender bullies. And at the end of episode, he reveals that he is the Fire Prince. And as soon as he does that, the boy who he became friends with, and the mother and the father, all resent him and tell him to get out of town, which really does show how, like, identity can potentially impact how you're treated in the world, believe you're even if you are doing good, but your background is, you know, from somewhere that has been controversial in the world. So next up, I'm actually going to play this scene. This is a scene from book two, and Zuko meets with this woman named Song, and he this is the first time he really learns humility, and that the Fire Nation has impacted people even if he can't directly see it. So I'm just gonna play the scene out, and it's a pretty touching scene. Uh, Hold on, technical difficulties. Sorry, guys. All right. I'm gonna have to. I'm sorry, guys. I technology is not the best, and there's a thunderstorm tonight, so I'm just turning it out. There we go.
Can I join you? I know what you've been through. We've all been through it. Fire Nation has hurt you. It's okay.
Okay, so yeah, this isn't working the best, but basically he does meet this woman, and he learns that she has a scar, um, kind of like her, or kind of like him, and he is very, shocked by this and taken aback because he didn't realize how this random woman he met in Earth Kingdom was affected by the Fire Nation, and it just shows the realities of war. All right, so I'm just gonna keep my screen like this because I'm getting some technical problems. But just continuing on, as the title suggests, Aang is the last Airbender, and the Fire Nation killed all air nomads in hopes to search for the avatars. So um, at the beginning of the series, Aang is, kind of a happy-go-lucky kid. Like he still believes the Airbenders are alive, and even when Southern Water Tribe and people like Katara said that people haven't seen the Air Nomads in over 100 years, he is kind of skeptical of this. So in the third episode of the show, he takes Sokka and Katara to the Southern Air Temple, where he believes, he'll find Monkey Atso and some other Air Nomads, but the first thing or one of the things he sees, especially towards the end, is the skeleton, which is actually the skeleton of Monkey Atso, his master. And he gets upset and goes into the Avatar state. So um, throughout the show, Aang does deal with his own internal conflict, that he has to accept the duties as the Avatar, and that his choice to run away led to negative consequences on the world. So as I said before, he was the next Avatar, and he ended up basically in a block of ice for 100 years because he didn't um, want to accept his responsibilities right away. He also wanted to spend time with Monkey so instead of go off and learn the duties of an Avatar. And even at the beginning of the show, we learned that Aang did not want to be the Avatar. He was forced into the position, and told it was his duty to go away from everyone he loved and to learn how to be, the world's protector. So, dealing with all this, like, you got to give Aang some sympathy because he is just a 12-year-old boy in a show. Going through hardship of, learning that your entire people have been killed is one thing, but Aang must also take on the task of learning all four elements and defeating the Fire Lord in a limited amount of time in order to save the world. So episodes like this are um, the Storm, the Guru, and the Awakening. The Storm is the flashback episode of Aang's past. The Guru is Aang essentially goes off with the Guru to learn about the Avatar state, and in the episode, Aang has to learn how to unlock his chakras. Um, through confronting himself and his past. So one of the things he ultimately feels guilty about is he feels that he let his whole people down by um, by running away, and yeah. So next up is character development, and this is the major reason why I believe everyone loves Avatar. Most of the people cosplay, I see them cosplay the main cast, and I just feel like one of the cast members, like uh, everyone would love a different cast member, and everyone would stick to a different cast member based on their character development. So there are many examples of this in the form of Ira's fatherhood to Zuko, um, Toph becoming the strongest Earthbender and proving that her disability, which is blindness, which is kind of mentioned that throughout the show. They kind of do a little bit of a joke gag with it, but they also do some seriousness that her blindness is what ultimately makes her the strongest Earthbender because she can sense things with the Earth that no other Earthbender can sense. Or Sokka getting over his feeling of sexism, which we see in episodes such as the Kyoshi Island one, where Sokka doubts a group of girls because as being warriors simply because they're girls, and then he ends up, making a connection with Suki, and Suki later becomes an important part of the series. Um, because Avatar gives us such strong development of the main and supporting casts, we end up caring for them. We care what happens. Like the beginning sets those roots, but the roots really do shine in season 2 and 3. And once we get to season 3, all the struggles and developments we've seen of characters like Aang and Zuko really come forward because we are invested in them as characters. So I'm gonna try this again, but this is a clip from the episode called "The Seven Raiders," and essentially what happens is that after Zuko joins the group, he takes Katara to find the person who killed her mother. And when she meets that person, she learns that he is not, the once Fire Nation admiral that killed her mother simply for potentially being a waterbender, but also she learns that he is just a old man who's stuck living with his mom and is pretty pathetic. So Katara has ends up confronting and going on to essentially attack him, but ends up choosing not to kill him um out of reasons that aren't forgiveness, but reasons that she doesn't want to essentially kill him. And there's a big, theme in this episode about forgiveness. And probably the most interesting thing is that she comes out of this um, not wanting to forgive her mother's killer, but sparing his life. So this is actually a fan dub of the actual clip. I couldn't find the clip on YouTube, and I didn't want to potentially download it from somewhere. I don't know if it would be considered pirating. So just enjoy this clip and hear, the rage and pain in Katara's voice. Obviously, her voice actor Mae Whitman does a great job with the scene, but enjoy.
In the Southern Water Tribe. We're not leaving until we find the Waterbender.
If I tell you, do you promise to leave the rest of the village alone? It's me. Take me as your prisoner.
I'm afraid I'm not taking prisoners today.
She lied to you. She was protecting the last waterbender.
What? Who?
Me! Ah!
I did a bad thing. I know I did, and you deserve revenge. So why don't you take my mother? That would be fair.
I always wondered what kind of person could do such a thing. But now that I see you, I think I understand. There's just nothing inside you. Nothing at all. You're pathetic and sad and empty.
Please spare me.
But as much as I hate you, I just can't do it.
So one thing I should note though is that even though I'm talking about a lot of these episodes and what I know from episodes, I am doing it no justice compared to actually watching the show. So this is why I encourage you all, even if you haven't seen Avatar, to go out and watch the full show. But assuming you all have seen this, it is a very powerful moment in the show, and obviously the topic of forgiveness and choosing to not be able to necessarily forgive but spare someone was incredibly powerful for a kids show, because most of the time kids shows just emphasize, oh, you should forgive anybody no matter who they are, but this takes it to an even more realistic sense that sometimes it really is hard to forgive. All right, so next up, Zuko is my favorite character of Avatar. As I said, many people can have their own favorite characters for different reasons, and there's a lot of popular ones among the fans. But Zuko is my favorite mainly because of his redemption arc, which I consider the best redemption arc in any television medium I've seen. I haven't seen too much, but honestly, Zuko compared to Kylo Ren is a much better redemption arc because of the struggle that he really does go through. So Zuko must learn humility and what his destiny is through overcoming various struggles. So in book one, he starts out being the main villain and hunting the Avatar. Um, and the reason, obviously, why he does this is because his father banished him, and he wants to seek forgiveness from his father. He doesn't care about hunting the Avatar or letting the Fire Nation prevail. He just wants to seek forgiveness from his father. And then in book two, he becomes a refugee in the Earth Kingdom. He starts out by leaving his uncle, but then he joins his uncle and ends up in Ba Sing Se, where he goes through some mental struggles. First he helps to run a tea shop with his uncle, and then he struggles to free Aang's bison. And then at the end of book two, we get the biggest plot twist as we think that Zuko will become good, but then he decides to join Azula and take down Aang, almost killing him in the process. And then this leads into book three, where he lives in luxury. So he goes back home to Fire Nation, and he's welcomed home. He's getting the life he always wanted, the life he's wanted since book one. And he realizes that this is not the destiny he wanted. He feels angry at himself. He can't focus on his relationship with May, or connecting with Azula, or connecting with his father or his nation, simply because he feels an internal struggle in himself that he wasn't sure if he did the right thing. So, also, Zuko's identity and destiny are shaped by his family. Um, Stemming from an abusive father, Fire Lord Ozai, a sister who is superior to him, Zula, one who he always tries to get the better of. And we see this in Zuko Alone, where he has some flashbacks, and you learn that Azula is not only the cocky brat child to him, but also she is superior, and and Zuko tries to prove himself to Azula, but ultimately fails to do so compared to Azula, and this makes Ozai angry. Zuko first believes that he has to capture the Avatar in order to please his family, as I said before, but Zuko has positive figures in his life, and these positive figures ultimately helped him to change as a person and realize his shortcomings even when he was the main villain. So we have his mother Ursa and his uncle Iroh. His mother is not apparent throughout the series, but she plays a central role as he constantly thinks to her as the quote unquote good person in his life. I mean, Iroh is with Zuko through thick and thin, even when Zuko betrays Iroh. In the episode of Avatar and Fire Lord, we also learned that Zuko's mental troubles and his character development is not only related to his bringing up as the Fire Prince and his relation to Fire Lord Sozin, but also we learned that on his mother's side, he is related to Avatar Roku. So he is fighting essentially an internal conflict of both good and bad, which are both dictated by his previous lives, which is kind of struggling as a person. So then I'm going to play this clip, assuming it works. Then in book three, Day of Black Sun, we get to the confrontation between Zuko and Fire Lord Ozai, and this is a very interesting confrontation because while Zuko does do it on the Day of Black Sun, he realizes that it's the Avatar's destiny to take down the Fire Lord and doesn't choose to slay him right then and there. Furthermore, he also, as soon as Ozai gets his powers back, he shoots lightning at Zuko, and Zuko's struggle to learn how to redirect lightning is brought up in a book 2 episode, and this is the first episode we see where Zuko finally redirects lightning and uses it against the person who ultimately caused him the most scarring and fear in his life.
For so long, all I wanted was for you to love me, to accept me. I thought it was my honor that I wanted, but really, I was just trying to please you. You, my father, who banished me just for talking out of turn. Growing up, we were taught that the Fire Nation was the greatest civilization in history, and somehow, the war was our way of sharing our greatness with the rest of the world. What an amazing lie that was. The people of the world are terrified by the Fire Nation. They don't see our greatness. They hate us. And we deserve it. We've created an era of fear in the world. And if we don't want the world to destroy itself, we need to replace it with an era of peace and kindness. I've come to an even more important decision. I'm going to join the Avatar, and I'm going to help him defeat you.
So, another point I forgot to bring up about this one clip is that not only does Zuko confront his father for himself, but he also confronts his father for his nation. Where, as you heard in that one line where he says, the Fire Nation is the greatest in history, as we were taught, but our way of expressing ourselves was being imperialistic, which is ultimately wrong. Shows Zuko's development over the course of the series and proves him to eventually be a worthy Fire Lord. Okay, so Zuko's confrontation. Why should we care? So, after seasons of struggling, Zuko realizes that his father cannot oppress him anymore, and this payoff is met with a risk that his father could gain his bending back, as I said before, after the Black Sun ends, and Zuko ends up redirecting lightning for the first time ever. However, even though he decides to join the Avatar in his group, his journey is not over. And Zuko in the episode, the Western Air Temple, yeah. Zuko must prove himself to Team Avatar and recognize that he must prove himself and recognize why Team Avatar would hate him. He's not simply accepted because he's good. So what I mean by this is that Zuko could have obviously just went and Team Avatar might have not forgiven him, and he would have been like, "Oh, I'm trying to be good, but you guys don't want to accept me, so screw you guys. I'm just gonna go against you guys and do my own thing because you guys don't want to accept me." But he realizes that Team Avatar would struggle to accept him based on his past. So he ends up proving himself not only through the Western Air Temple by defeating Combustion Man and talking about how he realizes his firebending was used for wrong and trying to gain forgiveness, but he also goes on journeys with Aang to help him learn firebend, the true source of firebending and the firebending masters, helping Sokka to rescue his father and Suki in the Boiling Rock episode, and helping Katara and the Seven Raiders. And then, yeah, by the end of Book 3, Sozin's Comet, even though you can consider Zuko's arc a little bit rushed because he only had about 7 episodes being in the group, he really did prove himself in the end. And the final battle, which I'm about to show, is to confront his sister Azula. And people, Bill talk about Azula being like, oh, she was horrible and she should pay for what she does, but what she should have done. But when you think about it, this battle coming up is Zuko versus Azula is really a solemn battle because Zuko and Azula are from the same family, but his sister chose his father's route, while Zuko kind of chose his mother's route and chose to do good. So brother versus sister is never good, and this is emphasized by the solemn music in this fight. Furthermore, I should also note that In book two, Zuko learns from Iroh um, uh, different bending styles. So he learns not only how the Fire Nation views their bending, but also the air, water, and earth cultures. And he takes these skills into this battle, as you can see by his movements, where he does more, patiently flowing and air bending types of movements. Azula is essentially going for an aggressive fight, but in this fight, she also is in a crazed mental state. She cannot fight as well as she had throughout the series. Also, the music is my favorite OST in the whole series. It's so good.
No lighting today? What's the matter? Afraid I'll redirect it?
Oh, I'll show you lightning!
So not only did we get that really interesting battle, but we also got the scene where Zuko essentially sacrifices himself for Katara, which in the end, proving himself, he became a trustworthy member of Team Avatar, and became a Fire Lord. So Zuko's redemption arc, take it how you will, but I consider it the best redemption arc in all of television history, because Zuko had to go through that very long 3-season struggle, whereas many villains, we will usually see them in just one movie or even just a couple of episodes go through a redemption arc, but a redemption arc may not be as fulfilling. Um, so next we get to Aang and the final confrontation in the Sozin's Comet episode. A lot of people are very skeptical about this episode because Aang essentially kind of does Deus Ex Machina and defeats the Fire Lord from energy bending that he learns through a lion turtle, which kind of came out of left field. But this episode is interesting because first with the Avatar, the point of the Avatar is that the Avatar lives on. There have been many Avatars before Aang, and there will be many Avatars after Aang, as long as the cycle is kept alive. And we learn about this through episodes such as Avatar Day and the Avatar and the Fire Lord, where the episodes focus on the lives of Aang's past incarnations, Kyoshi and Roku. We also learn that the war against the Fire Nation is the Avatar's fault because Roku chose not to stop Sozin out of his friendship and essentially spared him. And by the time Sozin died in the volcano, or Roku died in the volcano, Sozin was free to start his conquest of the world and wipe out the Nation in hopes to find the Air Avatar, aka Aang. So, the conflict of the Avatar's duty versus individual interest comes into play in the series finale when Aang must think of a way to defeat Fire Lord Ozai without killing him. So, in this episode, Aang, being spiritual, coming from spiritual monks, believes that he shouldn't kill anyone, even the tiniest spider caught in its own web, and he feels this about Fire Lord Ozai, where even though it's been built up that he's been scared of this guy and that he is the evilest person in the entire world, and Aang has to defeat him to save the world, Aang wants to find a way to stop Ozai without killing him because he believes that Ozai is human just as much as any other human who lives in the Avatar world. So Aang communicates with all of his previous incarnations, including the pacifist air nomad avatar Yang Chen, and he asks them for advice because he doesn't want to kill the Fire Lord, but he's trying to find the best way to defeat the Fire Lord before Sozin can use the comet to destroy the world. All of the avatars tell him that he must kill Fire Lord Ozai in order to save the world, and that even though he doesn't want to kill the Fire Lord, he has to as the avatars. So the whole energy bending premise and that Aang takes away Fire Lord Ozai's bending does fit in with the spiritual side, and I get it is a Deus Ex Machina, but ultimately Aang did achieve his goal of stopping the Fire Lord without killing him. So just really the whole spiritual aspect as well, which I probably should have made a slide on, is something that's really well done in the show. As I said, usually the air nomads are the most spiritual people, but there is a big focus on philosophies such as not killing and forgiveness being brought up, and many different things. So then we get into the comedy, and everyone loves a comedy. Like that is the first thing that people bring up when they talk about Avatar. So like you got moments like the Cabbage Man who always gets his cabbage cart wrecked by Team Avatar, or the foamy mouth guy who appears on Kyoshi Island, and after Aang reveals himself as the Avatar, he cheers so much that he foams and then passes out. And it's just random moments like that of absurdity that make you laugh. And then the best episode of comedy, in my opinion, which people still love to this day, is known as the Ember Island Players, in which Team Avatar, which is a Fire Nation feeder production of their adventures, and the episode serves as a series recap. But the best thing about this recap is that the creators took different fan thoughts on different episodes and different characters and put them into this one play. So, for example, Zuko in the play is obsessed with honor. Aang is a girl, and there's even a part where they fly over the Great Divide, which is just one episode that everyone hated, mainly for its ending. And they're flying over the Divide, and Aang's like, "Look, it's the Great Divide. Should we go?" And then Sokka's like, "Nah, let's keep flying." And it's just moments like that that are so great to the series and prove that the series creators really did listen to their fans in the end and respected us and how we thought of their show. So then lastly, I'm going to get quickly into the legacy of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and just as a heads up, never will watch or discuss the live action film with anyone. I know I just brought it up, and I feel so bad because I was trying to get my grandmother into Avatar when I was a kid, and we both went to see the movie, and I felt so bad that I ended up going with her to see that movie, and that was her introduction, because that movie was horrible. But anyways, so we have The Legend of Korra, which is the canonical sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender. It takes the main character is Aang's successor or next Avatar after Aang, Korra, and some of the Avatar cast do appear as old people in the show, but the show is also focused around life after Aang passes, rebuilding the Air Nation, which is shown mainly through Aang's son, and just how the world has modernized and changed in the time since Aang has been gone. I'm currently watching this on Netflix because this show is a very love or hate show. Like compared to Avatar, where it's usually universally agreed that everyone loves it. The Legend of Korra is divided among fans. Some people either hate Korra or some people either love Korra. And personally, I'm rewatching it on Netflix right now just to develop my own opinion. The show has 4 seasons, and I think it's worth checking out. I don't think it's a bad show like people say, and I think some of the complaints can be easily dismissed. Next up, we have the comics, and the comics are really important because, once again, they're like The Legend of Korra, they are actually canonical to the series. And in the Avatar of The Last Airbender comics, you learn what takes place after the end of the series. So you learn about Aang's adventures as the Avatar and Zuko's adventures as the Fire Lord. And I haven't read all the comics, so I don't know about all of them. The only one I've read is the uh, series called The Search, which discusses what happens to Zuko's mom, Ursa, and Zuko, Aang, and others team up with Azula to find Ursa in this comic series. The Legend of Korra also has comics as well. I have not read any of them, although, and this is spoilers for Korra, Korra and Asami, two of the main characters, were confirmed as a couple. I believe they are both bisexual because both of them ended up having a relationship with Mako, one of the main male characters, but the series does really focus on their relationship, which is obviously, good LGBTQ plus representation in culture. And The Legend of Korra was groundbreaking as it was the first children's show of this medium to focus or to show two characters end up being together who were not heterosexual. And then we have the Avatar Kyoshi novels. These are being sold at Barnes and Noble. I know there's two of them currently. One of them came out last year, and one of them just came out this year. I don't know anything about them besides that they are novels and not graphic novels, and that they focus on the life of Avatar Kyoshi. So yeah, the Avatar universe is still being made. If we ever get an Earth Avatar sequel to Korra, only time will tell in the future. But for now, I'm just glad that there is more to this universe that I love so much, aside from just Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I got to see the series grow and develop since I was a kid. So with that, we get into our Q&A and discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to the Discord, and if anyone wants to speak on their thoughts, feel free to unmute the mic and chat. Otherwise, I'll end panel a bit early, and you guys can just stick around here if you'd like. So yeah, if anyone's seen Avatar, or, has done more research than me in reading the comics or reading the Kyoshi novels, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll also go over to the chat and see if anyone typed in the chat while I'm at it. Who is my favorite character besides Zuko? My favorite character besides Zuko, obviously Uncle Iroh. Uncle Iroh is the best character. Really, he's been thick and thin through, Avatar as a whole. He's been with Zuko, even though Zuko, betrayed him at, at first, and Zuko and Iroh, he kind of went through a similar journey that Zuko did, except while he tried to take down Ba Sing Se and was ultimately successful, he felt grief after his son Lu Ten died. And, you have that Leaves of the Vine song that he sings, but it's also interesting because Ozai essentially it goes to Azulon, and the reason why Ursa is banned is because Azulon suggests that Iroh, who was supposed to be next in line as the Fire Lord, shouldn't be next in line because he kind of failed his duties. But that's just a little arc, and I don't know. I just think he's such a great character. But I really do love everyone in this series, and I could go on about how they are all great in their own ways. I also personally I think the cast is a bit better than Korra, but that's me as well. Was someone gonna say something? If I could be any bender. Okay, I've had a lot of thoughts about this. Water bending is clearly the most OP bending because water benders can blood bend. But I really like earth and fire personally. I'd rather be a firebender. Like I think fire is a cool element, and I think being able to redirect lightning is a cool element. If I had to be out on a ship in the middle of a storm, for example, I would just love to redirect that lightning. Yeah, you're right, Jacob. Waterbending is the most versatile and useful in everyday life. Water is essential to surviving, but as I said, I still think fire is the coolest. You'd rather be a waterbender or an earthbender? Yeah, I think all of them are interesting. And one thing I love that Avatar does is they add the different types of bending. So, for example, with earth bending, Toph learns how to bend metal and she becomes the first metal bender. Water bending, obviously, it's sub bending, is blood bending, but water benders can also become healers. And then firebenders, they can learn how to generate and how to redirect lightning. And then once again, bringing in Korra, um, Zahir, one of the main villains, who is an airbender, actually uses his airbending to suffocate the Earth Queen to death. Yes, yep. They also introduced that in Korra, where Earthbenders have lava bending as well. Yep, combustion bending too. As I said, like, feel free to comment in the chat, but you can also take off your mic or you can turn on your mic if you like and chat. It's up to you. Do you see the original Avatar creators left the Netflix show? Don't even get me started on that. Oh my god. I when that show comes out, I will not watch it. I don't like anything. Like I'm one of those people like with Disney who's like I'll watch the live action, but it's clearly going to be worse than the animated. And Avatar, obviously, we got one movie, so I've been skeptical about this. But hearing that the creators had created differences, I'm just like, yeah, no. And while a PG-13 Avatar could work, I still think it needs to keep its roots. The problem with The Last Airbender is it tried to be like too serious and mature. So you had characters like Sokka, or as they call him in the movie, Sokka, and Katara, um, be very serious and explaining their dialogues and trying to get through book one as quickly as possible instead of taking the time to really make them fun characters. So I'm worried that something like that could happen with this Netflix series, where it won't feel legitimate. Yep. Boomerang. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Like personally, I love Avatar so much. It's just a show that's held up. Like I'm big into anime, and I tell anyone, even if they don't watch animation, to go watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's just it's so well done, and it's a show that everyone could love, from children to adults. Like I say, my children could love the cool fighting stuff. Like I used to love the fights when I was a kid, but adults can love the mature themes of it and how they go about talking about like war and genocide, for example, like I explained in this panel. Does Avatar remind me of any anime? That's a tough one. I want to say Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. Oh wait, no. Okay, not Dragon Ball Z, but Naruto. And I actually was thinking about this more, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And I talk personally, I talk about JoJo's all the time. But in JoJo's, part of it is the characters use their stands, and their stands are like different from one another. So they usually have to work instead of just punching each other like Dragon Ball Z. They have to. No, Avatar is not an anime. Brianna, it's not an anime, and that's what turns people off from it. Like I was telling my friend to watch it, and he's like, I don't want to watch it because it's an anime. I'm like, no, it's not. But anyways, what was I saying? Hold on. But yeah, it's like JoJo's because like the characters have to essentially learn how to navigate the world using their different abilities, and they have to learn how to fight using each other's strengths and weaknesses. So a firebender might not do well against a waterbender, or an airbender may have trouble fighting an earthbender. You want to fight Ariel? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. That's so funny. Okay, I'll keep the comments section going for a few more minutes because this is pretty entertaining. I wish Nick would make more shows like we all do, Brianna. We all do. But now we get crap like Henry Danger, and The Loud House is fine. It's actually the only good show on Nick nowadays. And anything Schneider, well, Schneider left Nickelodeon because he ended up being a pedo, but anything live action nowadays feels like trash. Like I used to love Drake and Josh and iCarly, so like watching an episode of Avatar and then watching an episode of like Drake and Josh was like the perfect back to back for me growing up as a kid. Only Nickelodeon show that's around nowadays from that era is SpongeBob, but SpongeBob's gone to trash too. You give me headaches, headaches. Oh, I just thought of something really funny too. So, Nickelodeon used to make a lot of these crossover games way back in the day, like early and mid 2000s. And there's actually a crossover like sports, or I think it's a baseball one, and you can play as Aang. It's really funny. Like, imagine Aang playing baseball against like Invader Zim and SpongeBob. I should also bring up that there are 4 different video games from the Avatar series. One of them is just called Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's an action RPG. It's okay. I liked it as a kid. The second one is The Burning Earth. The third one is Into the Inferno. Both those 2 are based on books 2 and 3. The book 3 one plays like trash, and that it was so disappointing because it was over big final fights with Azula and Ozai, and the way the gameplay worked was just trash. And then there is a Legend of Korra one, which actually was produced by Platinum Games in 2014, but that one just feels like a basic beat 'em up, and there's no variety in the combat. I've seen a lot of footage of it, but I've never played it. And I actually, what photography crossover game, Ariel? But oh wait, you're talking about Freeze Frame Frenzy. I Yes, I played that, but I don't think Aang is in that or any of the Avatar characters. Yes, yes, yes. I used to play that game as a kid, yeah. So I'd love to see an Avatar action RPG one day, or people make Avatar D&D campaigns, but that's me. As I said, only time will tell if we get more from the Avatar universe, but right now I'm just glad we got more than just Avatar: The Last Airbender. No, I hate gotcha games. Sorry, Brianna. Probably hate me now. No, no, stop. Go play your Fate Grand Order and leave me alone. Fate Grand Order, Fire Emblem Heroes. We got enough gotchas. But yeah, I personally would love to see a better Avatar game, or even a fighting game come out of a series. That'd be great. Aang for Smash 2020. I'd be like, we got Sora in Smash, but I feel like Nickelodeon is more accepting than Disney. A Mortal Kombat Avatar game would be great. Oh, another thing I should bring up is I'm on some groups, but like there's a lot of Avatar memes out there. Like the one I see a lot is like the scene when with Iroh and Zuko, and it's like it's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And he says that in the show, but in the memes, it's like it's time to look in and ask yourself the big questions. If is water wet? Some random crap like that. Does anyone have any favorite moments from Avatar? Uh, it used to be book 3, but now Brianna's asking what my favorite book is. It used to be book 2. Book 2 has the most character development, and the characters go through the most struggles. And I just like the ending, how it's a lot like people compare it to the Empire Strikes Back, where the main hero gets defeated, and he goes on a journey to. All right, give me 1 second, guys. My computer's on low battery. I was trying not to plug it in because of a thunderstorm, but now I am. Who's more edgy, Kylo Ren or Zuko? Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren. Definitely. Zuko becomes like nice. Like Kylo Ren, his redemption arc is only in 1 movie, and even then, he's still. I mean, a stupid kiss with Rey. Oh my god. Zuko and Aang refusing to kill Ozai. Yeah, they just stuffed him in prison for the rest of his life. All right, I'll give the chat about 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna stop recording. But if you guys want to still hang out, you can, because this is recording on my laptop. Brianna, Zuko and Kylo Ren. I'd love to see them meet. Yeah. So in The Legend of Korra, Toph, Zuko, and Katara all make appearances, and Katara's just like a grandma. Like she's literally like dude. She's literally Grand in the first episode. Like you meet Grand. That's Katara in Legend of Korra. I read a little bit about the Earth-Fire conflict, but I don't know too much. I just know there was a war between the Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation. Anyways, as I was saying, Zuko reappears. He actually gets 1 fight scene, but gets defeated pretty quickly. And then Toph is the best. Toph is like she's old, cranky, and she just like kind of whoops Korra. It's great, but she lives in the swamp, and the same swamp from book 2, and I just feel like it's fitting for her and her character to kind of live like that on her own. But yeah, so with that being said, I'm gonna turn off the recording that I'm doing, and this will be put up online. So congrats, you're all internet famous now. But obviously, if you want to keep chatting in the chat or take